Hi, I'm Mark White with Discovery Martial Arts. Recently we had an opportunity to talk with Hardee Merritt from North Carolina Quest. He's going to be one of the instructors at NENC in October, and we wanted to give the people who are going to attend who don't really know him an opportunity to kind of hear about him and hear from him and his take on Ninjutsu, his history, and what he sees is going on with the art and where the art is going in for the future. Because for those who do know him, they know he's brilliant, unbelievable martial artist who cares deeply about this art. I've had the opportunity to train with him, and let me tell you, he is just as good as Build. And so, without any further ado, here's our interview and chat with Mr. Hardee Merritt.
So Hardee, thanks again for joining us today. We have Mr. Hardee Merritt and with us from North Carolina Quest. And Hardee, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your career history?
Yeah, I've been training in ninjutsu officially since early 1998. But as a kid, I was very fascinated with all things ninja. Probably my first exposure was a character in G.I. Joe named Snake Eyes. But as soon as I saw Snake Eyes, I knew that was for me. That was what I wanted to do. Um, I had a I had a great childhood growing up in a little small like sort of farm community, Eastern North Carolina. But I got into a couple of fights. I had a couple of incidences, especially in middle school years. I switched schools. I wound up going to a place where I didn't know a lot of folks and sort of had to prove myself. And I got into a bunch of situations I didn't know how to handle. And so I probably was like an angry and scared teenager, and like the thing that seemed like gave me a little bit of direction, gave me a little bit of hope, was the books that I had found by Anshu Stephen Hayes. And that stayed with me all through all of my interests. And ultimately in very early 98, I came up to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to visit some friends. I stopped at a gas station. I saw a sign that said Quest Center. Somehow I knew Quest was associated with Mr. Hayes. I went in and I signed up, and I didn't have a bunch of money. I was delivering pizza at the time, so I took a bunch of extra shifts. I lived like an hour and a half away, so I would drive up a couple times a week and just hang out at the dojo all day. The gentleman who owned the dojo at the time, I guess, took notice of this weirdo that kept showing up all day and hanging out, and he offered me a job to help with the kids, and then the rest is history.
It's nice to see as an instructor when you have a young student come in like that and they're clearly hungry. It's clearly for them. And I'm glad you stuck with it and that we're here together now. You've been running this school now for some time. You've been training for a number of years. And I'd like to know what about ninjutsu specifically continues to drive you as a student of martial arts and as a teacher.
Ninjutsu specifically has like a really refreshing view of possibility, right? We learn these principles, and you have like an artistic freedom to apply those principles to the situation as you need to make them fit. So it's not like a puzzle where it has to line up just so. You have some freedom with it. The idea of like the keyhole techniques and how you can adjust them and adapt them to different scenarios, but then the comprehensiveness of it as well. So like you strike, you punch and kick and shuto, and but then you enter right into grappling scenarios and you start standing and take them to the ground, and it seamlessly connects. And the amount of raw potential in all that we practice is the thing that gets me most excited. It keeps me excited.
I know it's not just on the ninjutsu side. If you go back and you look through, like, Dr. Hatsumi's old work, I'm certainly as a student who's trained with Mr. Hayes, this has been a part of it. But uh, its impact on your life is something that is of important note. And I'd like to know in what ways you think your training and experience in ninjutsu impacted your life.
Yeah, one of the things that is so great about it is the mental and the spiritual components to it. The things that I've learned about how to properly meditate, to self-regulate. Those are the things that really come down to it. Your physicality is great, and it peaks at a point, and then it starts to change as you age, and life has seasons. So what it really seems to, the most important thing of all of it is the character development piece. So in that sense, like having some tools again for like like emotional regulation, I'm sort of a hot-headed, fiery guy, and having those tools has been great. The second thing, and probably more important, has been the amazing people that I have met over the years through training. Like ninjutsu attracts a really cool type of person, and just having the access to the community that I've had over the years has been hands down the best part of training.
So moving forward a little bit, because we're getting a little bit more granular as far as some of the specific things you've done with your own training. Can you tell us a little bit more about your specific approach and what methods have worked well for you and your students?
Yes, I started in the Toshindo program and exclusively did that for most of my ninjutsu career. But my instructor, Dr. Richard Stack, and several of the other instructors that have influenced my training, John Poliquin included, have had many years in the Bujinkan, and so I've just tried to glean all the information that I could from my instructors. One of the things that Mr. Hayes did that was really inspiring to me is he went and adapted a fair amount of the techniques to more modern sort of attack scenarios. So we spend a little less time doing lunge punches. I personally spend a little less time doing sword and spear. Um, but that idea, that willingness to adapt and be modern in the approach has been inspirational, and I try to really highlight that. To another degree, some of the things that modern martial arts practices have shown us is there's different ways you can train and spar. You don't have to like put on headgear and boxing gloves and just beat each other bloody all the time. You can get in little situational components, and you can do a little back and forth. You can test things out, and personally, I have come to appreciate and find that that's really important for me. Again, it gives me the opportunity to practice that freedom that we're talking about, and then the real attributes that we give a lot of credence to: sensitivity and flow and freedom and creativity, and all that's fake if it's a choreographed thing. But if you get in and you mix it up a little bit, then you really have the opportunity to show you can flow, to show you can solve problems smoothly and efficiently. So personal training for me, ninjutsu, and I really enjoy the practice of Brazilian jiu-jitsu now. It allows me to connect the things together. I find that they mesh wonderfully well. Not everybody agrees, but for me, it's what I need, and exploring the freedom of it all.
It kind of leads to a broader question here where I'm curious what you think about this. What challenges does ninjutsu face as an art and a system, let's say over the next decade, here in America?
Uh, at the risk of making controversial statements, one of the things that I see, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. It was a story I heard as a kid. This emperor was tricked into wearing nothing. He would walk around naked, and everybody in the crowd was told, wow, his robes are amazing. But if you can't see his robes, that's your fault. You're too dumb to see them or appreciate them. And there's a lot of that in our martial art. There's people will show things that they're questionable, right? And it's okay to experiment. It's okay to try some stuff, but don't put it out as fact or as law until you get it tight. But there's a lot of folks that are presenting things, and if you question them on it, like you're just not good enough to see that. And what that does is it creates a hero worship, right? You get people with super high belts that are still people. They're still people. They're still training. They're still experimenting as they should be, but they're not gods, right? You got to remember that. So that piece of it, I think, is really important for us to address and not take ourselves too seriously as ninjutsu practitioners. Which is, it's funny, right? We're a bunch of people, particularly in America, that are like, "Nah, I'm a ninja." It's like, no, you're not. You're practicing this ninja style martial art. Like, you can't take yourself too seriously if you're saying this. You might as well be saying I'm a wizard, right? You're practicing this martial art. Take the techniques and learn from it what it is, and don't take yourself too seriously with it. You'll get locked in, and you'll get discouraged when things don't work, or you'll get um, competitive. You know, it's not the right attitude to have, because a lot of folks don't spar and scrap. The instructors are constantly forced to come up with like really high level, highbrow, sort of fantastic points to set themselves apart from their peers. But there's something really beautiful about a well executed Ichimonji come back in with a shot, especially if it's in a situation where it's free. Like, be okay with taking those like fundamental movements and like make them, polish them, and like not just to where they're a display level, but like a usable level. Like, you don't have to like talk about these ideas that you bring in a lot of physics and a lot of science and stuff, and explain it to a person. Just show me how well it works. And that's then it gets us out of our head a little bit and gets us back into the practical applicability of the art, because ninjutsu had to be the most practical thing. If you look at ninjutsu from a historical perspective, I'm gonna steal a quote from someone else, but like, MMA should be ninjutsu light. Like, ninjutsu was designed for like sneaking in and fighting 5 or 6 guys to save your life, to save your village, to to be the ultimate warrior. Like, going into a cage with a set of rules and a ref to keep you safe. That should be ninjutsu training, right? That should be like a small piece of the thing. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who does ninjutsu needs to go do an MMA thing, but I think that we need to understand that, an MMA scenario, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. If you can't defend it in an MMA ring, then you're not going to defend it on the street. So there's a few challenges, I think, and most of it's based on attitude, and not every practitioner has to do that. Not everybody who does jujitsu goes and competes at the pans, right? Like, some people do it for fun, but the people who are making the really bold statements about it, it's nice if they've got something to back up those statements, in my opinion.
Certainly some experience. Certainly some experience like that. It helps. I guess I'd say put people's heads on a little straighter sometimes, especially if they're a little out there. It's something kind of germane to martial arts, sort of as a practice in general, particularly traditional, as you mentioned that hero worship point earlier. And yeah, it's something we have to guard against in ourselves too. And it's something that other practitioners notice, and it's something that people will see. So
That
love
is,
your point.
that's the challenge. Is, to be honest, like, the people who are in it are already in it. They're sold. They're practicing and they're good. But as an art, we have to grow, and there are certain expectations now that your art needs to be able to perform in these conditions to be relevant. And so ninjutsu, like everything else in the world, has to adapt in order to stay relevant. And there has been some adaptation up to the point, but we're at a point right now where my feeling is there's a lot of resistance to continuing that adaptation. I can't paint with a broad brush. I don't want to say this. There are many ninja groups, many ninja people that I train with who spar regularly, who are making these adaptations, and they're doing it quietly. They're doing it on their own. They're getting their validation. They're getting their stuff out there. You could throw a tip of the hat to the Akban group. Those guys, Yossi Sheriff and his crew in Israel, they get in and they mix it up and they test out what they're saying. They keep it as relevant as they can. They also keep connection to the roots. So there's the legacy that we've inherited, but there's the future that we're trying to build, and those things are important. You got to consider both parts.
So this kind of brings us to NENC here, the New England Ninjutsu Conference, where we have you coming in as one of the three primary instructors here. Well, one of the three instructors in general, and then we have Mr. Mark Davis and Mr. John Poliquin also joining us as well. So it's kind of two different eras in ninjutsu history, kind of coming together to work with students who are a part of this already. So. From your perspective, what benefits and takeaways would you hope for students who attend NENC to walk out with?
For me, what determines the two things that I look at when I'm going to a seminar are the instructors And the instructor lineup for this one, like taking me out of the equation, is incredible. You know, Mark Davis is a legend in the ninjutsu world. He's created so many skillful teachers. He's a teacher of teachers, right? Really incredible practitioner. I've had just a handful of chances to sort of train with him and learn from him, but I've left a changed practitioner from both of them, really inspired by him. And then John Poliquin was a big part of my early training. The reason that I got into jujitsu, the reason that I got into focusing on stuff on the ground, was some of the possibilities that John Poliquin shared with me. And he's been an inspiration ever since I met him. You know, the way that he moves, the way that he carried himself, the ways that he performs techniques, the fluidity and the power in his movement is something I'm excited to be around again. I haven't had a chance to train around Mr. Poliquin probably for over a decade now, so I'm very excited about that. The second thing that you get from these seminars is the opportunity to train with other practitioners. So people that are coming out to this one to train with these guys are obviously looking to learn and to sort of follow in the footsteps of the folks that are on stage. And so you've got a kindred spirit out there. You've got somebody that's likely going to be out there and be willing to train hard, willing to push you, willing to help you become the best version of yourself. So just the instructor part and the training partner part are the two important considerations for the thing, regardless of what the instructors show, right? You've got a chance when you come out to ask your questions. And I think that's really important, just to have a list of questions, have an intention set out where I want to get this, or I want to work on that. Now, if the instructor, they're going to have their agenda, they're going to have the things they're going to show, but just being around people that have been doing this for that long, it's going to rub off on you. So if you want to get a little bit of that Mark Davis skill, a little bit of that John Poliquin skill, you should be up there.
That's great. You know, I recently listened to one of your videos where you chatted a little bit about making the Dino DNA analogy on off of your YouTube, and I really like it. I'm probably going to borrow it, but
yeah, feel free.
But there's awesome, very good. It's copyrighted. That'll be $20, please. You know, we're kind of taking a little bit of that Dino DNA from our teachers as well, and when you consider you know, their path to training and their teachers before them, you know, I'm curious what you are looking for in terms of physical and emotional skills you're seeing students develop as they come up and they develop into teachers themselves. We've circled the tower on that a little bit, but I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to kind of say concrete that you looked for paths of development.
It's a little bit hard to put your finger on it, but what is so great to see is the confidence in which people carry themselves change and develop as they train, right? And some people come in confident people already, and that's great. But like, what's really powerful is when you see a marked change in someone. So I had an opportunity. I've been teaching for 25 years in the same location, and I've got many adults who train with me who started when we call them mighty dragons, but when they were in our like youngest age group, and to see them grow up and to see them like be able to be their full like vibrant self without fear, like feel like they got to hide themselves or whatever, like they move through life fearlessly, freely, because of the confidence that they've gotten through training. I had a student that lost 90 pounds over the course of their training journey, came in as an adult, a little bit overweight, and just stuck with it and started training. Couldn't roll at first, couldn't do a triangle choke on the ground, just sort of had some stuff in the way, and throughout training shaped and changed their body. So there was a massive physical change, way healthier, way more mobile, way more free, lost a lot of pain in their knees and their back, but gained a ton of just confidence in themselves, and like to see that they're beaming, right? The capability increased, and with that, they knew that their own potential had increased. So that's it. You see people physically. Not a lot of folks come into ninjutsu and they get big, right? Like ninjutsu is not a resistance sort of thing, but you see a fluidity and an adaptability. You see a balance and an ability to like catch their balance. You get this enhanced mobility, but enhanced stability when it's needed. Just like this mastery of one's body. And then we do so many cool scenarios, right? With things where we're not just putting in mouthpieces and getting in and fighting. We'll practice. What do you say if these two guys come up to you? What do you say if these two guys attack you around the corner? How we're going to start this scenario with your eyes closed and this comes in. So we do all these things that stretch you mentally and emotionally. And so again, you get like an adaptability that's not just physical from it. And that's what keeps me coming back to it.
In the spirit of this conference, we're all trying to come together. We're trying to raise the tide here, raise all the ninjutsu boats here, all the dojos that are a part of this here. And I would like to hear your thoughts on how we as students, teachers, leaders in this art, how do we go about building that stronger community with one another?
Man, I think doing what you're doing what Scott, Hakutoshi, Bragg, and myself are trying to do. We're hosting these conferences. We just train together, right? If if you've got a different teacher who's going to handle your promotions, great, right? We got to get a little cohesion so that we have some training partners. We get some cross pollination. We don't get institutionally inbred, right? Like if we do things within the same people all the time, over and over and over again, we're going to create our own little echo chambers. We're going to start believing we're going to believe our own BS, right? You got to get in and get with other folks. You got to test your ideas against what other folks are doing. You got to get inspired. And that training is the reason it keeps us all going anyway. Like somebody that will come in and push us to be the best version of ourselves. We joke at our dojo and say the more you like somebody, the harder you hit them. And it's just that's it. That's what keeps us together. That's what keeps us on the mat. And to get out there, get in the community. We were in a digital world, and a lot of stuff. I'm grateful for Zoom. I'm grateful for FaceTime. I'm grateful for YouTube, because I can sit down and I can pull up videos and I can be inspired before I get to the dojo, so I'm primed and I'm ready. But nothing beats getting on the mat and moving around with someone. That real pressure. You can't video test someone's timing or someone's like pressure release game and that sort of stuff. You got to be on the mat with each other to appreciate it and to develop it. So that's what we got to do. We got to get back to the days where we're getting together and we're punching each other.
That's the line of the day right there, man. I'm going to be clipping that for sure. I'm right there with you, Hardee. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I think that we're very in line with the way that we think on this, and that's why it's wonderful to have guys like yourself who are ready, willing, and able to come out and train with us. There's a lot we could learn from a guy like you. So appreciate it. Thanks again, sir.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. And I do want to say that if people watching this don't agree with the stuff that I'm saying, that's a great thing. That's a good thing. That not everybody has to agree with you. And if we have differences in opinion, let's get together and let's train. Let's work through it.
That's a great idea. We're in. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hardee, and we will chat with you soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Be well. Take care.